So, you gotta think deeper. You know? Let's talk, man. Yeah, let's talk. Let's have a little chat. Let's talk about life. Let's talk about life, and let's talk about choosing life. There's this saying that I don't like, but maybe it's because I haven't been alive long enough to see it come to fruition, to see its true relevance. Maybe I just haven't lived long enough yet. The phrase walking in the gray areas or living in the gray areas of life, I may have butchered that, I don't know, but we're talking about the gray areas. That's what I want to focus on. I feel like this is totally false. I don't believe in gray areas. Gray areas are lies. I'll explain. Now, Christ said something similar to he would rather you be hot or cold and not to be lukewarm, right? Lukewarm is a gray area. Hot and cold are definites. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like hot and cold could be like the equivalent of white and black. I'm not talking about black and white people. I'm just simply talking about opposite sides, right? How we say life is not black and white, it's gray, So the two opposite sides, black and white. No middle area, no middle ground. The middle ground is gray areas. We don't rock with those. So if you're talking about choosing life, what would be the opposite of choosing life? Death, right? That's something I don't want to choose, and that's something that you should not choose. But yet I see it all too often. I see it every day. People choosing to be lukewarm and trying to get comfortable in a gray area. Not choosing life, right? You got to realize anything outside of being hot, which means choosing life, is death, right? Even the gray areas equal death, because opposites. If you're one, you can't be the other. So if you're in the gray area, that means you're lukewarm. You're gonna spew what you see. He'll spew you out, spit you right on out, right? You don't want to be in that gray area. I want you to contemplate something. Man's word and God's word. Whose word would you believe? Whose word would you take? Who do you follow? Maybe a better question. If you say you follow God, let me ask one more question. Are you sure? If you say you follow God, how do you know you really are following God? Contemplate that for a minute, and let's get into some good old definitions. You know how I like to do it. I looked up the word follow, since we're going to be talking about people who mainly call themselves followers of Christ. I want you to know, if you say that, let's see if we really mean that. All right. Follow. Definition, I just Googled it, is to go or come after, move behind in the same direction. And I also looked down, scrolled down, and it had other words for follow. The other words, some of them were obey, heed, and observe. So if you follow someone, which means you're going after someone, you move behind in the same direction as someone, you would obey that someone. You would also heed, and you would also observe. I just want to, I like to be clear. So I like to make things clear. So we're going to get some clarity today. All right. Also, and a very important word for today's talk is abrogate. If I'm not pronouncing that right, my bad. Now, but you'll see the connection of abrogate by the end of the show. But here's the definition. It is to repeal or do away with. In parentheses, it has a law, a right, or a formal agreement. Abrogate. Second definition, to evade. In parentheses, a responsibility or duty. Say it again. Abrogate means to repeal or do away with a law, a right, or a formal agreement. It means to evade a responsibility or a duty. Abrogate. Remember that. We're also going to define delusion. Yes, we're going to define delusion. Delusion is a false belief or judgment about an external reality held despite an incontrovertible evidence. Despite incontrovertible evidence. If I pronounced that wrong, I'm sorry. To the contrary, occurring especially in the mental conditions. Let me run through it. A false belief or judgment about external reality held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, occurring especially in mental conditions. So this is a mental condition to be in a state of delusion. And despite incontrovertible evidence, you are in this mental state. I looked up incontrovertible because it had it underlined, and I just felt like that must be some very strong evidence with that long ass word. So incontrovertible, that means not able to be denied or disputed. So you have evidence that cannot be denied. It's not able to be denied or disputed. So someone who's delusional, despite evidence that you can't even deny, that you can't even prove wrong, will still believe a false belief or judgment about an external reality. So there's something that's a real thing. You live in reality. So we live in reality, but despite all this solid evidence, somebody still believes to think otherwise.